I am recording now. So, we last left off. I might. I might actually finish the book today, though I'm not sure. Because it just sounds like a lot. Yeah, it just sounds like a whole bunch. And I'm just like, nah, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to eat munchies after this. But it's going to get very, very intense. We are on page God damn it. We're on page 224 and the book ends at 260. So we're very close. Well, I can't say very close, but we're pretty close. If I were to read like 2.5 hours, we'd probably finish the book. Though I don't know if I'm gonna do that. I can start telling that my voice is gonna get a little weird. So I'm gonna go and get some water. Well, some more water, because this is not enough. Okay, I am back. And I will give you what happened. Where are we now? Yay, I'm welcomed back. I think I have a scrunchie in my bag. Oh, I had to actually get my bag. Where are you, Scrunchie? Show yourself. Oh, God. Do you have a scrunchie in here? I just sat down in my bed. Just sat down in my goddamn bed. Okay. Pretty sure I saw a scrunchie. It's just all hidden within my fucking junk. Okay. It'd be nice to see in my goddamn bag. God, I need to clean this shit up. It is appalling to look at. Okay, where did I leave my scrunchie then? I need my scrunchie. Sorry to all those that are gonna be listening to this recording. I get angry a lot. There we go. There's my scrunchie. I try not to get so angry while recording, but you know, sometimes it happens. But I just try and remember I'm recording, even though I can take this out. I'm too lazy to. Fury Unleashed. Yes. Yes. Because, you know, especially you, know how mad I can get sometimes. Man, it's unhealthy. Okay, anyway. Okay. So she got into the lighthouse. She went down to South Place and she saw Lucius and she rescued him. Sort of, until they got captured. So that's where we are in the story. Yeah. And then it seems like May's mom might be uh lured in by a water demon to the ever after. So ooh, I wonder how that's gonna play out. She's hella dead. Hella dead. Let me see. I just want to see something real quick. Oh, okay. Cool. There we go. Alrighty. So yeah, that's what's happened thus far. How much pages is this? Dust. Okay. So, let's start. It only took me 6 minutes. God damn. No, 7 minutes actually. Okay. All right. Chapter 29. The Dungeons of Abandoned Hope. May looked about. She was in a colorless square room, open on one side. Lucius lay in a ball in the corner, hiding his face. Kitty was nowhere to be seen. Posters hung up on one of the walls covered with phrases like, "Why try?" and "We are all we are is dust in the wind." A book sat on a tiny table nearby. Life. A whole lot of trouble for nothing. May stood up on wobbly legs and walked toward the side of the room where there was no wall. But as soon as she reached the threshold, there was a loud zap. Ow! May grabbed her elbow and backed up. Invisible bars, silly. May swiveled. Lucius had sat up and was gazing at her forlornly. "I've got to get Somber Kitty," she said, turning back. Oh yeah, and Somber Kitty was separated from May when she was making that escape. And then Commander Berserko. Yes, again. So she has to see what that is all about. She reached out to push against them. Again, they zapped her hands. Undefeated, she kicked them. Then she tried to ram them, getting her shoulder and her back zapped over and over. Finally, she stood back, clenching her fists. "No!" she yelled. No! She felt Lucius's arm go around her and pull her away from the bars. They sat down next to each other. "My cat," she said, looking at him mournfully. "These dungeons are impossible to break out of," Lucius said. "The prisoners whisper about it. They say the one wall is invisible just to tease you." At that, without warning, about at that, without warning, May burst into tears. Instead of scolding her, telling her she sounded like a baby, or saying she had gotten them here in the first place, Lucius patted her knobby left knee awkwardly. I won't go home without him, May murmured. Where's home? May looked up. May looked up at him. Oh yeah, because he still doesn't know that she's a live one. That's why she said that. May looked at. May looked up at him. He was looking at her with the utmost earnestness. Home is where my mom is. Lucius stared at her solemnly. She swept back the cuff of her shroud and showed Lucius her arm, not translucent, not glowing. I'm alive. She pulled back her death shroud to reveal how colorful she was, how solid. Lucius took this in calmly, almost sadly. Aren't you surprised? He shrugged. Oh yeah, thank you. Yes, you do. Oh shit, no, that's not what I wanted to do. God damn it. Press like a fucking weird button. Okay. Let me just... There we go. Alright. Back to the thing. Aren't you surprised? He shrugged. Disappointed. Why? Well, being dead seemed to be the only thing we had in common. He grinned. May didn't laugh. She just hung her head. Look on the bright side. At least the goblins thought you were dead. How do you know? Well, Lucius folded his hands. If they knew you were a live one, we'd be getting a visit from the bogey right about now. They both looked down the corridor as if the bogey were about to appear in front of them. Look. Lucius shifted. You may be surprised by how things turn out. Take me, for example. Yesterday, I thought being a slave to the ghouls was one of the worst things that could happen to me. Now I'm in a dungeon. I'm so sorry. For everything. Lucius's eyes sparkled the way they had back at the catacombs. It was brave of you to try. May rolled her eyes. Yeah. Anyway, seeing you makes me feel more than my old... Ugh. Anyway, seeing you makes me feel like my old self. Lucius shifted again and cleared his throat. May smiled, trying to be optimistic. She wondered where Fabio, Beatrice, and Pumpkin were at the moment. Were at that moment. Yeah, she wondered where Fabio, Beatrice, and Pumpkin were at that moment. Hopefully, far out of Hocus Pocus. At least they were safe. But still, being away from them made her feel very alone. May and Lucius were quiet for a while. So, did you come all this way just to find me? He eventually asked. Well, May fidgeted. I was hoping I would find you, but actually, like I said, I'm trying to get home. The Lady of North Farm Storm told me there's a way under the bogey's bed. Lucius tilted his head thoughtfully and turned to her face. I thought that was just a tall tale. What? Lucius blinked. Well, that the bogey has his own personal portal to Earth. Everybody whispers about it. Gosh, and to think it's been there that all this time. Lucius's eyes brightened, along with his whole body. Along with his whole body. I could go back to Earth with you. And then just as quickly, his glow faded. He seemed to wilt like a flower. It was 1942 when I died. I suppose I wouldn't have much to go back to now. And then another thought seemed to occur to him, and he went a shade or two even dimmer. I suppose that's how the bogey got me, by coming through that portal of his. May felt anger bubble up. She remembered hearing about how the bogey had stolen life from Lucius and the other luminous boys, and by entering their nightmares. She took the fabric of their death. She took the fabric. Yeah, she took the fabric of her death shroud in both hands and picked at it. Lucius tugged on the tie of his private school uniform. Let me. Jesus, I can't not talk. Lucius tugged on the tie of his private school uniform. It's a shame, really, about the bars. Hell yeah, I believe in me too. Though my voice box or my isn't really wanting me to read. I don't know. There's like a phlegm that's just getting caught like right there, and it's just like hindering my ability to talk, and I'm just like, why are you doing this? That is not very nice of you. Okay. Anyway. um it's a shame, really, about the bars. There's a great shortcut just down the hall there, he pointed. The lazy way ladder goes straight to the top, with an entrance on each level. May followed his gesture skeptically. How do you know? Lucius grinned, puffing out his chest. I know this place backward and forward, picking the fruits of bitterness here. Picking the fruits of bitterness here, digging ditches there. I've had to carry gold laundry. He wrinkled his nose. Through half the hallways and corridors down here. I don't need a girl to rescue me. May tried to ignore how annoying he could be. Well, if that's true, why haven't you escaped already? Lucius considered this seriously for a long moment. Hope, I guess. Hope? Well, when you don't hope for anything, I suppose you don't really bother, do you? No, May shook her head. I guess not. I mean, Lucius leaned back and stared at the low, colorless ceiling. It's silly, but I've sort of just stopped hoping to get out. Maybe it's the air here. Or a shadow, May said, thinking of the heavy darkness that seemed to fill everything Bo Clevel and the dark spirits touched. Oh, and then, of course, there's the bogey, Lucius added. May leaned toward him sympathetically, not quite bold enough to touch his hand. She knew that he had been She knew that he had been petrified. Oh my god. Huh. Okay, one more time. Because seriously, there's like a piece of goddamn phlegm that's just like, if I talk too long, it comes up like right over my voice and it just stops. And I'm just like, why are you doing that? Okay. Okay. Actually, it's not okay. Hold on, let me just turn this down so. Okay, there we go. She knew that he had been petrified of the boogie ever since he had died. They sat and stared at each other for a while. Then suddenly, Lucius slapped himself on the forehead. I know how we can get out of here. May looked at him like he'd grown a third head. Really? Yeah, come on, let's go. May looked around. How? Well, we'll just a sport. A sport? Let me say, I'm pretty sure I'm saying it right, but I want to see if I'm saying it right. Esport. No, not esport. Sorry. No, not sport, not sport. Oh, Asport. Okay, there we go. Asport. Well, we'll just a sport. A sport? A sport, silly. You know, disappear and reappear. It's not easy, but if you practice enough, any spirit can do it. It's like whistling or blowing a bubble. May looked around. But wouldn't the dark spirits know that? Wouldn't they make sure you couldn't esport out of here? Lucius thought about this. Well, you can esport only a few feet, and most spirits don't know how. May nibbled her pinky nail. Well, I don't think I can esport anyway. I'm not a spirit. Like, exactly. That's what they have to do. They have to get good esports. That's a good one. um, May nibbled her pinky nail. Well, I don't think I can ask for it anyway. I'm not a spirit. Lucius wilted immediately. Oh, he looked about. Right. I hadn't thought about that. For a few minutes, his glow dimmed, and then he knelt in front of her and gave her his old devilish smile. Just try it. Oh, I don't. And then the thought, why try? Crossed her mind. May looked at the poster across the dungeon, and then she looked back at Lucius, who was staring at her earnestly. If you think about it, he continued, being here in the lowest depths of South Place is the pits. But it is also something else. What? It's the closest you can get to the bogey's bedroom. Sorry. Like my throat is like really fucking up. Throughout the empty hallways of South Place, Summer Kitty and Commander Berserko careened like pinballs. When Summer Kitty zipped left, so did, so did the commander. When he zipped right, the commander was right behind him. The chase took them up the spiral of South Place, along the Corkscrew River. As Summer Kitty zipped past them, dark spirits of every walk of the afterlife let out shouts of surprise. And then, when they saw Commander Berserko coming fast behind him, they ran to hide. It wasn't until he reached the swamp of swallowed souls that Sombrikitty slowed down, realizing that he could not outfloat his pursuer. Meow! He looked behind him. He looked behind him. For the moment, the commander was out of sight. A noise behind Kitty made him turn. The swamp bubbled and howled, and many of the bubbles were shaped like black shut dogs. They seemed to claw forward. They seemed to claw toward him, trying to pull him in. Panting, he turned. He could hear Commander Berserko coming down the corridor. He could hear the tap, tap, tap of her claws. She came slowly. Clearly, she knew that Summer Kitty had reached a dead end. May closed her eyes for the 30th time. Just concentrate on being over here instead of over there. It's easy. I'm trying, May said. Lucius stood outside the bars, looking at her. He had escorted in and out of the dungeon about 20 times, showing off. It's not really that easy. It's not really that easy, May said, frustrated. She tried to picture herself in the hallway just beyond the bars where Lucius stood. She closed her eyes, then opened them. Again, she was still in the same place. I don't think it'll work for me, Lucius. I just don't think it'll work for me, Lucius. It will. Just forget where you are. You have to believe you're here and not there. May concentrated again. She could picture herself standing next to Lucius, outside the dungeon. She tried to believe it. She kept trying. And suddenly, a very empty feeling came upon her. She mistook it for disappointment and opened her eyes. When she did, she let out a scream. Standing next to Lucius was herself. At least, a version of herself. The girl looked like May, but she was as drifty and translucent as Lucius, and she was levitating about 5 feet from May. Lucius studied the drifty spirit behind him, then studied the flesh and blood May, still standing inside the cell with her heart pounding. Oh, I guess it is impossible. You sent only your soul out. I guess she did. I think that's what she did. May opened her mouth several times before she got out a reply. Well, what do I do if my soul's out there, and I'm in here? She asked, panicked. The three stood there for a moment. Lucius, May, and May's soul, staring at one another helplessly. Why don't you try closing your eyes again and getting her back? Lucius suggested. She's not a ghost. She's not a ghost. Shut up, she's not a ghost. No, you were not right all along. She's not a ghost. Stop thinking that. I will hate you the next time I see you. It's not a ghost. Um, I mean, aren't we all ghosts walking around in a human body? Isn't that just what we are? We're not actually our bodies, maybe just our brains. But this physical form, it won't last forever. Maybe we're just our true self is maybe just a soul. And maybe a soul can be defined as a bunch of neurons, a bunch of cells, nerve cells, and no, not nerve cells. We are infinite. Yes, we are infinite. All right. Anyway, the three stood there for a moment. Lucius, May, and May's soul, staring at one another helplessly. Why don't you try closing your eyes again and getting her back? Lucius suggested. May did. She tried and tried, but every time she opened her eyes, her soul was still standing out in the corridor, staring at her forlornly. I guess I guess she can't get back through the bars, Lucius offered. She doesn't seem very talkative either. I suppose I suppose I'll just be going now, Lucius said with a sigh. Then, at May's look of shock, he giggled. A joke! You don't think I'd leave you in there without your soul, do you? He turned to May's soul. I'm going to look for a key. I'm going to go look for a key. Lucia zipped away in a ball of light. While he was gone, May and her soul stared at each other nervously. May thought about trying to make conversation, but she wasn't sure about what to say. Several minutes went by before Lucius came zipping back, dangling a key in his hand. That was easy, he said, looking dazed. Very odd. The gulls weren't even at their posts. He felt around the invisible bars, zapping himself several times. May and her soul both winced sympathetically. Finally, he got it. There! With a click and a snap, the sound of doors sliding open, and the sound of a door sliding open. May looked at the empty space, gingerly stepping toward it, and tiptoed across the threshold. There was no zap, no nothing. And a moment later, she was standing beside her soul. The two reached out to touch one another's hand. The two reached out to touch each other's hands, and a blinding white light suddenly forced May to close her eyes. The emptiness inside went away as quickly as it had come, and her eyes fluttered open. Lucius's grin infected her, and she smiled wildly. Let's go find my cat, May said, turning businesslike. Ding ding! The floors beneath both of them shook. What's that? May asked. It sounded like the chimes of a giant clock. Lucius looked up toward where the sound was coming from. The big clock. It's nothing. They zipped off down the hallway. Alright, and that was the end of chapter 29. Alright, now we are gonna go to chapter. Ooh, okay. Chapter 30. This is gonna get resolved quick. Alright, chapter 30. A Sack of Dust. Deep in the woods of Bury Swamp, Ellen Bird was no longer charmed by what she saw in the lake. The swimmer beneath its surface had begun to stretch into 8 glowing points. Her smile had widened to reveal a malicious grin. An arrow of fear raced down Ellen's spine. The creature, now horrible instead of beautiful, reached toward her, and then it stopped. As quickly as it had come, it turned and swam in the other direction, down, 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 until it was only a point of light, and then the light went out. May's mother turned for the woods and ran home. Far above, all the other, all over the star known as the far above, all over the star known as the Ever After, dark spirits left their posts. Goblins and ghouls swarmed out of the villages toward the sea. Mummies and zombies ambled along side by side in the direction of the water. Every mean and twisted soul in the realm converged on South Place for the largest meeting of evil in the history of the afterlife. In Hocus Pocus, Pumpkin, Fabio, and Bee had made it to the city limits before deciding to entrust Isabella to the others to try and follow to and uh, before deciding to entrust Isabella to the others and try to follow after Maybird. Aghast, they watched from a sewer grate as dark spirits, great and small, clambered to the edges of the sea and leaped in. This is bad, Bee observed. In fact, though nobody said it, they were all thinking the same thing. It was beginning to look as if the lady had led May into a trap. Above May and Lucius, the ceiling rocked with loud thuds. They both looked upward ominously, then at each other, then hurried on ahead, looking this way and that for Somber Kitty. About 10 minutes later, they passed an arched opening toward a crumbling stone staircase that led downward. That's the bogey's bedroom, Lucius said, turning dim. May peered down the stairs, then up the hall. Well, she said, biting her lip. It could be that Kitty's already found his way there. She started down the stairs, then turned to Lucius. You can stay here if you want. I'll be right back. Lucius peered over his shoulder. No thanks, I'll come with you. No thanks, I'll come with you. They found the door at the end of the hall. It protruded from the wall in the shape of a dog's. It protruded from the wall in the shape of a dog's snout, two stone fangs jutting from the jowls, and a knocker hanging from the great stone nose. May hesitated to open, looked at Lucius, and then pushed on the nose. The door creaked open. She drifted inside, followed by Lucius. The room was decorated in black and gold. An enormous bed covered in a black velvet blanket dominated the space. The headboard carved with fearful faces, stuffed animals, 9 little black shuck dogs in all, were scattered across the pillows. There was a closet door and a black bureau next to it with gold skull-shaped knobs. At the end were several knickknacks, trophies for Realm's deadliest henchman, the Scariest Spirit Award, and several South Place dance-off ribbons, including one for Realm's baddest breakdancer. May looked at all of these things in awe as Lucius hovered by the door. Her heart thrummed. Oh, what? May looked at Lucius, who turned pale. Someone's coming. Lucius grabbed the back of her shroud and yanked her down, shimmying both of them under the bed. They lay there, sick with fear. A moment later, a pair of feet drifted in the room. Another moment, two knees of black trousers appeared as the figure knelt on the floor. One unmistakable, horrifying suction cup tipped hand swept a wide swept a wide arc under the bed. Back and forth, May pressed back, the fingertips within inches of her. She grabbed Lucius's hands, her own sweaty and trembling, and then the horrible fingers closed around something near her feet. A white, shiny piece of fabric. The bogey's hand disappeared and he stood up, and there was a rustle as the fabric was unfolded. From under the bed, it looked like a sequined bell-bottom jumpsuit. While May watched in horror, the bogey changed into the jumpsuit, and then he drifted out of the room. A few seconds after a few seconds passed, May tapped Lucius's back. He's gone. They peered out at the door a moment longer, wanting to make sure. In that after in that outfit, he really looked like a boogeyman. May finally whispered. There must be a trap door or something, Lucius replied. May realized with a start that they were under the bed, right where she had been trying to get all along. You're right. She pivoted around on her belly and started searching the floor, coughing at the dust bunnies. She felt all over the floor with her hands. Nothing. There was only one thing underneath the bed, tucked back in the far corner. A tiny sack of some sort. May ignored it, feeling frantic along the ground. Finally, she and Lucius crawled out from under the bed and stared at each other. Reconsidering, Lucius ducked back under and pulled out the little sack. They both looked down at it. May's heart fell into her feet. Farm Maybird, the tag said. Glowing on the bag itself was a stamped label. Sack of Stardust. May read the fine print under the stamp. This sack of stardust, handcrafted by the spirits of North Farm. Good for inducing sneezes, putting out fires, and not much else. She raised her eyes, pale as Lucius. What does that mean? What does it mean? Lucius opened the sack. There's a note in here, he said, pulling it out and handing it to her. May stood with her back to the bogey's closet and slowly unfolded the paper. What it said made her blood run cold. May, home is right behind you now. Sincerely, the lady. May grabbed the sack from Lucius's hands and looked into it. Dust? She whispered. It's just dust. Was this a prank? A joke? Oh, I thought she was saying this. Was this a prank? A joke? May squatted and looked under the bed again, but there was nothing there. May's body heated like a flame. The lady of North Farm, Lucius mused. I hear she's very tricky. He looked at May sympathetically. I suppose it was all rumors after all. But she said... May thought back to many things the lady had said, and what she kept coming back to was this. That she was good, but also partly evil. Did you do something to make her mad? Lucius asked. May's head was spinning wildly. She couldn't speak or even think. She had relied on the lady. She had counted on the lady. She had been wrong. May clenched her fists, her eyes filling with tears. What do I do? Helplessly, she peered at herself, She peered at herself in the bogey's mirror. The anger boiled inside her like lava. She waited for the tears to creep back under her eyelids, and then, with one shuddering breath, she pulled her bow from her back and headed to the door. Where are you going? May turned to Lucius. To get what belongs to me. As she floated out the door, Lucius zipped after her in awe. Wait! May swiveled on him, her lashes flashing. I'm not going to let things happen to me, to us, anymore. May gonna pop a bitch. Oh, sorry, I didn't see the other message that you said. The vanishing dust or something. I don't remember what the dust does, but it does something. I just don't know what. And yeah, she's gonna pop a bitch. Alright. I'm not gonna let things happen to me, to us, anymore. I'm going to make them happen. Her mouth straightened into a determined line. I'm going to start with the bogey. I'm going to make him tell me where my cat is. She turned away quickly and strode ahead. You've gone mad! Lucius yelled behind her, trying to keep up. And he was right. May was so mad she could hardly see. In fact, floating down the hall, her bow in hand, the supernovas in her bathing suit exploding, her black hair flying, she was the very picture of a warrior. Commander Berserko turned the corner into the cavern of the swallowed souls, meeting her prey's eyes, her canines poking out of her jowls like in a crocodile-like smile. Somberkitty, his back to the swamp, panted, and his tongue hanging out of his mouth in an unsightly, embarrassed manner. His tail stood straight up. He swiped down with one tired paw, but nothing caught nothing but air. Meow! His knees gave way. The commander, letting out a thin, satisfied hiss, took a step closer, and then she floated into the air, puffing out. Her fur became spiky, smoke pouring out of her ears. Somberkitty wiggled his nose, sniffing the air. He tilted his head to the left and to the right. Meow, he said curiously, and then Commander Berserker's tail lashed out toward him. At that moment, Kitty's fatigue, which he of course had been faking, disappeared. With astonishing energy, he leaped sideways, dodging the tail gracefully, and then Somberkitty did what any cat who knew martial arts would do. He gave Somberkitty a swift karate chop. The commander careened against a nearby wall and bounced back, howling. As she flew by him, Somberkitty leaped into the air and executed a lightning-fast judo kick, sending the commander flying across the cavern like an air hockey puck. The commander let out a mew of surprise as she sailed right into the swamp. She scrambled against the edges of the bubbly ooze, letting out a long screech, but the bubbles, barking and snarling, dragged her down. One outstretched paw remained above the swamp's churning surface for a moment longer, and then it too sank out of sight. Nothing remained of Commander Berserko but a small and sparkly object lying on the shore. Somebody sniffed the glistening diamond collar with disdain, and then hurried away. And that is the end of chapter 30. Somberkitty! Somberkitty will be fine. Or will he? Ooh. But Commander Berserko is Commander defeated. More like man for Jerko. Nice. Hold on. Hold on. I need to find the perfect one. Funny. All right. Okay. I think. Oh man. Okay. So the next couple of chapters are gonna be um quite ridiculous in a really childish way. I think you're gonna just kind of laugh a little in these chapters. Hey, well, you might feel the suspense too, but also these chapters are pretty ridiculous. Anyway, I will start reading. I am chapter 31. The Dastardly Disco. Yes, you heard that right. The Dastardly Disco. It had been an agonizing few minutes for Beatrice, Pumpkin, and Fabio. They just didn't know what to do. Hurry into the lighthouse and head after Maybird, which also meant heading into pretty certain doom. Or stay where they were, which would leave their friend in danger, or stay where they were and which would leave their friend in danger. All right, I need to. Well, no, I don't have to reread that whole paragraph. I just felt like because I didn't see the question mark, so I didn't say it with a question mark until. You know what? I'm just gonna read it again. Sorry. Okay. It had been an agonizing few minutes for Beatrice, Pumpkin, and Fabio. They just didn't know what to do. Hurry into the lighthouse and head after Maybird, which also meant heading into pretty certain doom, or stay where they were, which would leave their friend in certain danger. Nobody, of course, considered choosing the second option, but they couldn't quite figure out how to tackle the first. I don't know how, but I'm going after her, Pumpkin finally said, pushing up against the sewer grate behind Bee. Uh, pushing up against the sewer grate as Bee held him back. Pumpkin, wait! She grabbed the bottom of his trousers, but Pumpkin kept floating forward until, holding on with all her might, Bee flopped out onto the street in a heap. Fabio leaped out of the sewer and tried to pull her back by her feet. We are just needing to think of a plan, Pumpkin. we are we are we are just uh, I'm like, should I try and do an Italian accent? I don't want to be too stereotypical. We are just needing to think of a plan, Pumpkin. As it was as they were pulling Beatrice like a jump rope, when they notice a pair of similar slitted green eyes staring at them through the lighthouse doorway, beckoning. Alright, I'm gonna just adjust myself a little bit. Oh, God. I might actually finish this book. I'm not sure, though. Because I'm at 240 right now, so I just need 20 more pages. I think I can do that. Yeah, I think I might do that. Where was I? It was as they were pulling Beatrice like a jump rope when they noticed a pair of similar slitted green eyes staring at them through the lighthouse doorway, beckoning. The bogey, whom May and Lucius had caught up with a mere 2 halls away from his room, drifted on ahead, and May drifted. Let me see. Maybe my connection is off. Oh yeah, my connection got a little unconnected. But I am back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, cool. What did you miss? I don't think you missed much. Oh, damn. Why did I not hear the goddamn thing for the notification? Jesus. Okay. Okay, let me just read. Nobody, of course, considered choosing the second option, but they couldn't. Wait. Okay. Did you. Okay. Nobody, of course, considered choosing the second option. Did you hear the second option? I'm pretty sure you did, because I read it twice. Okay, cool. Nobody, of course, considered choosing the second option, but they couldn't quite figure out how to tackle the first. I don't know how, but I'm going after her, Pumpkin finally said, pushing up against the sewer grate as Bee held him back. Pumpkin, wait! She grabbed the bottom of his trousers, but Pumpkin kept floating forward until, holding on with all her might, Bee flopped down onto the street in a heap. Fabio leaped out of the sewer and tried to pull her back by her feet. We are just needing to think of a plan, Pumpkin. It was as they were pulling Beatrice like a jump rope when they noticed. Hold on. When they noticed a pair of similar slitted green eyes staring at them through the lighthouse doorway, beckoning. The bogey, whom May and Lucius caught up with a mere 2 halls away from his room, drifted on ahead, and May drifted along behind him, Lucius tugging on her shroud from time to time and making an "Are you crazy?" face. You don't have to come. You don't have to come, she whispered over her shoulder, never taking her eyes off the bogey's back. They floated all the way up to the first floor of South Place, behind him, then twisted through a maze of hallways. Soon they came to a pair of double doors at the end of a hall. Oh, God. The bogey paused, straightening his white bell-bottom jumpsuit, adjusting his top hat so it just sat so, and pushed through the doors and through a thick curtain. May and Lucius slipped in after him, peering out behind the curtain as the doors closed behind them. They were in a dark room, sparkling with purple strobe lights crisscrossing the floor. Somewhere far above, someone coughed. And now, introducing your host. Hold on. And now, introducing your host. May stood up straight, pulled an arrow from her back, and aimed. From all around, a thrumming beat began. From above, a spotlight focused on the bogey. The bogey! And then the world seemed to come to a halt. May's heart froze within her as her eyes drifted upward and to take in an enormous hall, 9 stories high, layered with hundreds of jagged balconies piling on top of the other to the ceiling, and each one was teeming with ghouls, goblins, zombies, trolls, mummies, and every other dark thing that had ever roamed the realm. There were so many tiers extending so far up that May couldn't even see beyond them. An enormous clock ran up one side of the vast hill. An enormous clock ran up one side of the vast hall, with an equally enormous gold pendulum, and draped across was a banner lit by a spotlight. Realm Takeover Kickoff Party. The strobe lights flickered across the masses that were clinging to the balconies like countless germs. Their teeth were large, their claws sharp. Their faces were set with malice. The first beats of a song began to pound over loudspeakers all over the walls, shaking the floor. May and Lucius shrank back against the door. In the middle of the floor, the bogey thrust his arm upward in a dramatic maneuver, and then he began to dance. The dastardly disco had begun. And that is the end of chapter 31. All right. On on to chapter Shining Moment. She's gonna shoot everyone. No, she's not. Spoiler, she doesn't. Or maybe she does. I don't remember. Alright. His chapter of glory has begun. It's gonna be like Yondu from Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh man, no. Nah, it's not. You want to think it is, but it's not. It's not gonna be like that. At least I don't remember it to be like that. I don't think it is, but you can still have hope. Alright, anyway. This is Somber Kitty's moment now. This is his time to shine. Chapter 32. Somber Kitty dances at midnight. Yeah, you wish it was going to be like that, but no. It's not. I don't think it's going to be like that. That'd be cool, though. That'd be awesome. Okay. Yeah, chapter 32. Somber Kitty dances at midnight. South Place appeared to be deserted. But Fabio, Bee, and Pumpkin and Kitty knew better. Where is everyone? Beatrice asked. With no one to hide from, they were winding down the spiral of the realm in a fraction of the time it had taken May and Kitty. I have very bad feeling no words can describe. I'm not gonna. I say I'm gonna try and do the Italian accent, but you know what? I'm gonna do an accent, but it's not gonna be Italian. But I'll just try and do an accent that's sort of close. I have very bad feeling no words can describe, Fabio offered, which is not usual for me, he added in a whisper. Ignoring their instincts, which told them to escape while they still could, they followed Somber Kitty farther and farther downward. Up ahead, they could hear the sound of impossibly loud music. Um, as May and Lucius walked up from the cover of the curtains, the ghouls and goblins and zombies poured out from the balconies, climbing, scrambling, practically dripping from the tiers above to join the bogey on the dance floor. Blame it on the sunshine! Blame it on the moonlight! Blame it on the good times! Blame it on the boogie! Everywhere, they fell into the same steps as the bogey. Step, step, growl, lurch. It was the world's most terrifying line dance. Back and forth, around and around, the dark spirits jerked and slithered. For the length of the song, the dark spirits did their dance, and the two friends behind the curtains looked in awe. When the music finally stopped, a microphone descended from somewhere far above, landing in the middle of the floor, where the boogie where the bogey scooped it up. The clock marked the time, 11:56. In a few minutes, the guests of honor will be arriving. The dark spirits, um, the dark spirits scrambled back the dark spirits scrambled back up to their seats, snarling and stomping as they arrived in their rows, until only the bogey was left on the floor. He's taken a trip down from his fortress to make a special announcement, the bogey continued. So special that you've all been excused from your haunting duties for the night. More snarling and stomping. At the stroke of midnight, he'll be arriving. The music leaped to life again. Everyone peered at the clock. It was 11:57. Every head turned to the direction of the ninth floor balcony, which was completely empty. May, too, stared at the empty balcony. She knew, of course, who would be appearing there. Her fear had turned into a ribbon inside her, tying her to the place where she stood. Lucius took hold of the back of her shroud and whispered in her ear, "We've got to get out of here." Far down at the end of the hall, Sombrity saw a pair of double doors. He sniffed the air and turned back to the others. Meow? He was very surely, he said very surely, and zipped ahead. The others hurried after him. May let Lucius pull her backward, toward the doors. One step, two steps, thwop! As the doors behind them burst open, they went hurtling forward, sailing through the slit in the curtains and sliding onto the dance floor. Wait, hold on. I'm not comprehending. Alright. May let Lucius pull her backward, toward the doors. One step, two steps, thwop! As the doors behind them burst open, they went hurtling forward, sailing through the slit in the curtains and sliding onto the dance floor. Pumpkin, then Beatrice and Fabio came sprawling after them. Only Somber Kitty stayed on all fours. The group landed in a tight knot, in full view of all the spectators. Sorry. The hall went completely quiet. For a moment, no one knew what to do. May pulled her death shroud tightly around her as she and her friends stood slowly, peering about the hall. The bogey was frozen in place, his white eyeballs glinting at them. Even the thousands upon thousands of dark spirits were still as statues. Someone had forgotten to stop the music. The speakers started blaring out the next tune. Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. I'm not kidding. That was the tune. Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk, I'm a woman's man. No time to talk. And then finally, one creature mute. One, and then finally, one creature moved. As May and the others looked on, Sombrigity stood on his hind legs and began to dance. No, surprisingly, this book wasn't written. It's not a very old book. It was like, I think, published back in like 2006. Yeah, I think 2006. But I think they're just using on. It's a dastardly disco. So hence, the author needed disco music. Yeah, that's true. All right. Oh, but yeah, that was the end of chapter 32. And now we are at 33. 33. 33. Oh my god, dude, we're so goddamn close now. We're at 246 right now. 246. Okay. Chapter 33. The Guest of Honor. What are you oohing? Pumpkin whispered, trying not to move. His lips, trying not to move his lips as he smiled broadly into the balconies, making like he was enjoying the disco. Summer Kitty ignored him, executed a twirl, a swivel hip, and his favorite. Oh, this is gonna be hard to say, so I'm gonna have to look it up. There we go. That's the word. Fouette. Okay, so it's fouette. Okay, so yeah. Summer Kitty ignored him, executed a twirl, a swivel hip, and his favorite, a fouette, keeping perfect time with the rhythm of the music. Ah, ha, ha, stand alive, stand alive. May and the others watched with high. Sorry, I got distracted. My brother's still playing his game, and like he's going like wild about it. Like he's giggling and all this shit. Like I think he's just very exciting about the game, which is cool. But also like I could hear him from like across the hall. And I'm just like, man, Josh. You're getting really excited there, buddy. Okay, back to the story. May and the others watched with wide eyes, and then May looked up at the faces of the dark spirits. They were nudging one another curiously and pointing to the graceful creature on the floor. It was not only a cat, but a dancing cat. He's trying to confuse them, he whispered, and it looked to be working, at least for the moment. The dark spirits started cheering. May and the others fake smiled at one another. They all began to move awkwardly. Fabio thrust one finger into the air and rocked his hips stiffly. Beatrice waved elegantly. Pumpkin executed the worm, a breakdance move he'd seen on TV while haunting White Moss Manor. Together, they all danced backward toward the double doors. Ding, 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 ding. As the great clock struck midnight, lightning bolts snaked their way across the dark ceiling of the room, smoke billowing out above them. The music stopped. All eyes turned to the uppermost balcony, where a dark silhouette had emerged. The figure wore a wide-brimmed hat, pulled down over his eyes, and an old, worn jacket. The hall shook, as if with an earthquake, sending the spirits toppling over all over the place, and the small knot of dancers on the floor sprawling. Pumpkin scrambled behind May. Fabio reached for Beatrice. Somber Kitty leaped in front of them all and growled. Hello. Hello. The dark figure's voice echoed against the walls and reverberated loudly around the hall. Though he was far, far above, May could feel his eyes resting on her. Maybird, is it? Beau Cleavel shook his head carelessly. You look very familiar, little speck. With a wave of his hand, a great wind gusted through the hall, blowing May's death shroud back so that it hung to her neck by the strap just barely. She clasped the neck strap with both hands and held it tight. Let's see. Here's a fact I heard recently. Known far and wide as the girl who destroyed evil Beau Cleavel's reign of terror, resides in Burry Swamp, West Virginia. Beau Cleavel quoted from the Book of the Dead. The bogey let out a raspy whimper, and the dark spirit shifted and murmured. I was told you'd been made into nothing. Beau Cleavel tapped his chin thoughtfully. Let me think. Who told me that? Ah, yes. He thrust out a finger and pointed at the bogey. Bogey, you've been bad. Before the bogey could so much as tremble, a shaft of light shot from Beau Cleavel's finger. The smoke cleared a moment later, and all that was left of the bogey was a top hat and a pile of ash. You could have heard a pin drop in the great hall. Beau Cleavel went on, sounding perfectly relaxed. I'm glad you could make it to our party, May. You see, this is where the ever after, as we all know it, ends. He swept the crowds with his eyes. As you know, I have an announcement. After tonight, there will be no more South Place. The dark spirits whispered and jabbered. No more realm under the sea for you. It's dark. It's messy. Forget it. Tonight, we're leaving it behind. Moving upstairs. Permanently. The spirits in the balconies let out dreadful cheers as Beau Cleavel turned his attention back to May, and, with a gesture, indicated they should quiet down. I'm curious to hear how you found your way this far, little speck, but more lazy, really, than curious. He thrust out a finger again, and the air beneath May's feet began to vibrate and change. Suddenly, May was being lifted into the air. She soared up, 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 until she was 100 feet or more above the dance floor, looking down on her friends and level with Bo Clevo. Frustrated, she fumbled behind her back and pulled out her bow, slipping an arrow into the notch. She took aim. Bo Clevo laughed and waggled one finger, sending the arrow plummeting into the ground. Sending the arrow plummeting to the ground with a tiny plunk. May was pulled through the air toward him until she was hovering right above the rail of his tier, just inches from him, still clutching her bow. Bo Clevo studied her. His eyes gleamed like holes from underneath the shadow of his hat, and in them May saw everything she feared: coldness, hatred, and something else: emptiness. Even more than being scared, May felt the loneliest she had ever felt. She tried to squirm, but she could not move her arms or legs an inch. She looked down at her friends, and then she thought of what that note under the bogey's bed had said. She looked down at her. Let me say that again. She looked down at her friends, and then she thought of what the note under the bogey's bed had said. Home is behind you now. It was coming true. She couldn't believe it. She didn't want to believe it. And then, oh, May groaned. In a flash, she could see it. Standing in the bogey's bedroom, reading the note. She remembered where she'd been standing when she'd read it. Home is behind you now. The lady was tricky. The bogey's portal wasn't under his bed. When she read the lady's note, May had been standing with her back to the bogey's closet. And that is the end of chapter 34. Chapter 33. Chapter 33. Alright, chapter 34. Oh my god, we're so close to the end now. Goddamn. Oh boy. What's gonna happen? What is gonna happen? Oh man. Alright, chapter 34. Yeah, you just had to look around. That's right. That is pretty fucking tricky. Like if someone said, no, this is where the portal is, and you got a note that said, no, it's right behind you. Yeah, that is pretty tricky. Yeah. Alright, but chapter 34, Dust in the Wind. With a simple flick of his index finger, Po Clevel sent May whipping around in the air until she was upside down, just above his head. He laughed and flicked his finger again. May shook like a leaf. The rest of her arrows went. The rest of her arrows clattered to the ground, leaving over only her bow, which she just managed to strap to her back. Other things fell out of her pockets. A goalie gum wrapper. Some. Hold on. Let me just readjust myself. I'm just like getting tired. All right. Where was I? Excuse me. All right. Um, the rest of her arrows clattered to the ground, leaving only her bow, which she just managed to strap to her back. Other things fell out of her pockets. A goalie gum wrapper Pumpkin had stuffed in there, a rubber band from the colony of undead, a feather from the night they had dressed up at Risk Falls. Bill Cleveland shook her again, for good measure. As May tilted this way and that, the sack of stardust in her pocket, which she hadn't closed, shook out its contents. The last speck of dust fluttered out of the sack. It trickled through the air, crossing the distance between May's pocket and Bo Clevel's face. It drifted, quietly and unseen, into his left eye. As May watched in confusion. Hold on, wait just a second. Okay. Uh, it trickled through the air, crossing the distance between May's pocket and Bo Clevel's face. It drifted quietly and unseen into his left eye. As May watched in confusion, Bo Clevel winced and his eye began to water, and then he wrinkled his nose and sneezed. May went plummeting downward. She was just a few feet above the ground when Clevel recovered himself and thrust out his arm, drawing her back up. But May felt a sudden new weight on her feet. And Fabio was hanging on to her ankles for dear life. May slipped an inch downward. At the same time, the pull from above got stronger, but she began to rise again. Fabio still dangling beneath her. No! Below, Beatrice leaped at Fabio's feet, tripping over her dress, but managing to grab on. Again, May sank and rose. Beatrice's feet left the ground. Lucius jumped next, tackling Bee around the knees, then down and then up again, and then up they went. Down on the ground, Pumpkin looked back at Somber Kitty, bit his lips, and lunged for Lucius. Somber Kitty came last of all. He hurled himself at Pumpkin's toes and dug his front claws into the bottoms of Pumpkin's trousers. His back claws dug into the floor. It was as if Blow Clevel. It was as if Bo Clevel and Somber Kitty were having a great tug of war. While Clevel pulled with a force no one could see, Somber Kitty pulled with his toes, and all of May's friends pulled with him, as if they were all in an immense vacuum. Things started flying about all over the dance hall. Tiaras, pitchforks, whips, chains, pocketbooks. May's shroud pulled upward on her neck, sucked by the wind Bo Clevel had created. With one hand, she was untie it. With one hand, she untied it and went flying into the bogies. With one hand, she untied it, and it went flying into Bo Clevel's face. Amid the din, the dark spirits gabbled in awe. May was resplendent, wildly alive. The supernovas on her bathing suit continued to explode, and her dark hair flew behind her. Her eyes searched the room for a way to escape, and she saw it beneath her. I need that arrow! She hollered to Fabio, pointing it with her chin to the place of she hollered to Fabio, pointing to her chin to the place on the floor where the first fallen had landed, now near Kitty's feet. May needs that arrow, Fabio called into the whirlwind to Beatrice, who called to Lucius, who called to Pumpkin. Pumpkin, still desperately holding onto Lucius's ankle with one hand, swooped the other long arm down with Kitty. Wait, let me say that again. Uh, st- Pumpkin, still desperately holding onto Lucius's ankle with one hand, swooped the other long arm down around Kitty, who was still dug into Pumpkin's pants, and managed to grab the arrow and pass it upward. A moment later, a moment later, May had it in her hands. May pulled her bow from her back and took aim. She took a deep breath, focused her eye on the spot she intended to hit, and let the arrow fly. The shot went straight into the palm of Bo Clevel's hand. The hand trembled for a moment and then went silver. A shriek shook the walls of the hall as he stumbled backward. May and the others fell again, this time all the way to the floor, landing in a smushy heap. As they yanked one another upright, Lucius gushed, "Not bad!" His blue eyes were wide and admiring. All around them, the dark spirit stared, flabbergasted. May retrieved her death shroud from where it had fluttered to the ground and retied it around her neck. Then, right as she stood, right as she looked up, the dark spirits let out howls of rage and started clambering down the balconies. All right, and that is the end of chapter 34. Oh, fuck, dude. We are on the last two fucking chapters, man. Okay. Second to last chapter. It is crazy. How is this book going to end? Oh my god. Okay. You probably know by the name of this chapter. Chapter 35. The Bogey's Closet. The entire hall shook as Bo Clevel continued to howl. A balcony above buckled. A gaggle of snarling goblins blocked the doors. "This way!" Beatrice said, leading the group in the other direction. Suddenly, a troop of zombies leaped from the first tier and landed in front of them. May and the others stood poised in the middle. The two groups of dark spirits closed in toward each other. May and her friends gathered into a tight knot, backing up. The goblins directed at the zombies a collective grr, which was goblin for "Have you have you have you ever seen anything more tacky?" The goblins directed at the goblins a collective "ew, ew," which of course only meant "ew, ew." And then all the years of animosity between the two groups finally exploding. The zombies and the goblins hurled themselves at each other, ignoring the fugitives completely. May looked at Beatrice, and Beatrice gave her the same bewildered look back. Then they all zipped toward the doors, and this time passed safely through them. Bo Clevel let out another hall-shaking howl of rage, and behind them, the frame of the door came tumbling down. As they sprinted into the corridor, the walls around them shook, as if South Place was undergoing an earthquake. "Oh," Pumpkin moaned. As they turned the corner, a voice resounded through the hallway, and the force of it blew them like a wind. It was Bo Clevel's voice, and it seemed to come from each and every particle of air around them. "Maybird!" it screamed. "Let's go! Let's go!" Lucius ushered everyone forward. May brought up the rear, carrying Somber Kitty against her ribs. They zipped down the hall that led to the bogey's bedroom, scurrying in the direction of the entrance to the Lazy Way ladder scurrying in the direction of the entrance to the lazy away ladder that Lucius had pointed out earlier. But at the top of the bogey stairs, May paused. Pumpkin, zipping up ahead, turned back to look for her, then stopped short. The others did the same. Everybody was wondering the same thing. Why had May stopped? The way out for me is down there, she said, staring at them earnestly. I think May glanced down a flight of stairs that would take her to the bogey's bedroom. She didn't just think. I know. Behind them, something enormous slammed, and they heard the grunts of hundreds of dark spirits in pursuit, but none of the friends moved. Pumpkin looked stricken. Well, what are you waiting for? Beatrice cried. May shook her head unsurely. I don't know if I can leave you. This your wish, Fabio said. This why you come so far, little May. You must go. Meow? Somber Kitty twisted around and gave her a serious look. Their mother needed them too. Jabbers and growls and snarls were coming from all directions. Jabbers and growls and snarls were coming from all directions now, as the dark spirits wound their way along various routes. May scanned her friends. But how will you get out? It's not a problem, Lucius said. Trust me. Bee's eyes filled with tears. We'll be fine. She wrapped her arms around May's neck and gave her a tight hug. We won't give you a choice. There's no time for long goodbyes. Go! Fabio hugged May next and kissed Somber Kitty at the top of the head. Then Lucius gave May an awkward embrace and rubbed Kitty's ears. When he pulled back, May stood hesitating on the brink of the stairs. Only Pumpkin was left. He was leaning against the opposite wall, pretending not to see her. Pumpkin, you gotta go, he said, looking down at his fingers. I know. I always knew you would. Finally, he looked at her, his big black eyes wide and sorrowful. Oh, Pumpkin. Just as May took a step toward him, there was a crash. A gang of gulls filled the end of the hall behind them. May and her friends took one last look at each other as Fabio grabbed Pumpkin's shirt and Lucius spirited the group forward in the direction of the ladder. One by one, they disappeared. Pumpkin last of all. The last sight May had of him was his sad face under his waving tuft of hair, and then his long fingers reaching out toward her for a hug that would never happen now, before they disappeared around the bend. May stood in a shuddering breath, and then, with Kitty in her arms, she turned and zoomed down the stairs. Within minutes, May was standing in front of the bogey's closet. She sent up a silent wish to a million stars before grabbing the door handle and yanking it open. She and Kitty stood there, looking in wide-eyed and stunned. Amid the boxes of shoes and row upon row of black suits was a puddle in the middle of the floor. It wasn't like any puddle May had seen. It was an enormous sucking. It made an enormous sucking sound and gaped at her. Small lights, like tiny stars, twinkled in the depths. Next to it, a tiny wheel caught her eye. It had a small arrow mounted on a spinner in the middle, and the arrow could point to one of the 4 different colored sections of a map of Earth. Tiny stars marked the 4 portals in the 4 corners of the globe. May drew a finger to her lips, and then very gently, very carefully, took the arrow and pointed it to the star that marked Bury Swamp. Now all that was left, she guessed, was to leap. May hesitated. She looked back at the door to the bogey's bedroom. Beyond it lay her worst fears, the goblins, ghouls, Beau Cleaville, but also beyond it were her friends, and a place in the universe that claimed to need her. Need her. May looked at the pool on the floor of the closet again. Yeah, let me say that again. May looked at the pool on the floor of the closet again. Underneath it was her mom and everything that was warm and as comfy as a fuzzy mitten. Underneath it was home. May peered into the watery blackness. I can't, Kitty. I can't leave them. Turning, she rushed back to the bedroom door and quickly turned the corner into the hallway packed with ghouls coming toward her. Clutching Somber Kitty tightly, May backed into the bedroom again, looking around for a place to hide, a different way to escape. She looked at the closet again, knowing there was no other way. She crept to the edge of the puddle. She closed her eyes and counted to 3, and then she turned to look over her shoulder. The first of the ghouls had gained on the doorway and were lunging toward her. May hoped for luck and leaped. And that is the end of chapter 35. Now we go on to the last chapter of this book. Chapter 36. Under the Night. The sky was dark above, but for the occasional flash of lightning flickering on raindrops as they plummeted toward the tiny lake far below. The moon, hidden by the storm clouds, had no view, and so she missed it when a little girl burst out from the surface of the lake and scrambled up on shore, pulling herself across the dirt and finally resting a few feet from the water's edge, as soppy and bedraggled as a wet mouse. May pulled Kitty out of her shroud. She filled her lungs deeply with air and continued lying on her back, looking up in space. Had she made it? Had she really made it? May sat up, then stood on shaky legs, and then turned to take in the trees, the briars, the sky. There were no zipping stars in it, no gray dusk hanging. It was night. May took another deep breath, and then she laughed. She held out her arms and flung her head back and howled. She hopped from foot to foot. Somber Kitty watched from a safe distance, slightly embarrassed for her. Exhausted, her legs giving way beneath her, May sank back down to the ground, running her fingertips happily into the soft mud, eyeing her bathing suit, which no longer glowed or sparkled. Her heart gave a hard ache, and she ran her hands over the fabric, then looked back up in the sky. She ran through the briars like the prickers didn't matter. She needed to know that she was really here, and she wouldn't believe it for real until she saw it. White Moss Manor. Home. Bursting onto the lawn, she took in the sight. Every light in the house was on, as they had been, though May didn't know it, ever since she disappeared. She took a step toward the house, began to run, and then she stopped right there in the middle of the grass and looked into the sky one more time. Somewhere, someone needed her. Somewhere, they thought, she was a hero. She leveled her eyesight back to the house and spied a face in the window, a worried face under brown curls. It hadn't seen her yet. May ran for the porch. Somber Kitty tucked in her arms, taking the steps 2 at a time. She stopped short of the door, and her stomach did a flop. A tiny white envelope was waiting for her on the brushy welcome home mat. Seeing the familiar stamp, she picked it up and slid it open, pulling it out of the letter in a flash. Pulling out the letter in a flash. Dearest May, congratulations. I knew you could do it. You see, I am not all that bad. She kept reading. Don't forget about the stardust. Don't forget about the quartz rocks in the woods. You are small, but you are also so much more. May smiled, her lips bunching up as she tried not to cry. And don't forget, we still need you. Don't forget us. Sincerely, the Lady of North Farm. The letter began to shrivel and then turned to dust in May's fingers. It fell through the cracks beneath them and then through the cracks in the porch beneath her feet. May looked at her front door, taking one final deep breath. She turned the knob. Mom? She called as she gave a big push and burst inside. She left the door wide open. Oh no, she left the door open behind her. Out on the lawn, only a spider and a ladybug heard the muffled sound of pounding feet running down the stairs and happy cries of two people who loved each other very much, saying hello after a long goodbye. The trees missed it completely. Right then, their attention was turned in another direction, upward, toward a star that was growing dim. And that is the end of the second book. What is gonna happen now? Dude, my heart is pounding right now. Reading that last chapter, oh my god, it was just pounding. Oh, I love this book. Now she's gotta go back there to get her mom back. What do you mean? No, her mom didn't get taken. She got reunited with her mom. Her mom's not. Ugh. Jesus, such a conspiracy theorist here. Okay, I'm gonna stop this recording. Thank you for listening to my rambling. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.